Hi, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. I can see people joining now, so I will just give a few minutes to let people enter the meeting before we kick off. But as you're joining, you are all very welcome. I can see the numbers of participants ticking up there. So we'll just give a little minute before we kick off to let people join.
I can say that again.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to kick off today. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us to our webinar. This webinar forms part of FoodCloud's Food Circle project. It's a Department of Environment, Climate and Communications funded projects where we are examining food redistribution and donation actions that are outlined in the Food Waste Prevention Roadmap. And I suppose our role in that is supporting the department to examine and promote best practices in food redistribution and looking at any policy interventions that may support that. An important element of this project is just to look at what we are currently doing in food redistribution in Ireland, and that is the purpose of the webinar today. So before I get into it, just a little bit of admin. This webinar is being recorded and it'll be made available as soon as possible on our FoodCloud website. And you can also visit our YouTube channel, which it'll be on, and the Food Circle page on our website. And also, we are trying to keep this short and sharp so that people can enjoy our conversation over their lunch break. So we haven't opened it to Q&A broadly, but if you have any questions, you can message directly on the chat and we can pick them up either after the recording or you can email us directly. And then I suppose just to give you a background and an overview of what you're going to hear from today. I suppose as one of the co-founders of FoodCloud, we have a vision for a world where no good food goes to waste. And our role is to support food industry and charities to work together to rescue perfectly good food and support those who need it most in our communities across the country. We're now heading into our teenage years, so we're about 12 years old, and we're really proud of the success that we have had to date, redistributing almost 340 million meals. But that is only possible with the partnership of our food companies and our charity partners. And so today we will be talking to one of our food partners, Dawn Farm Foods, and we'll also be talking to Tiglin, one of our charity partners. They are representative of a really wide network of food industry and charity partners. So just to give you a sense of that, in Ireland, we work with over 200 food industry partners, all the major retailers, and over 700 charities across the country. And I suppose we always say in FoodCloud that that's where the magic happens. And our role is really to enable that. So today I'm joined by two of our partners and really grateful for their support. Without further ado, I'm going to go and introduce Katrina and Tara from Dawn Farm Foods, and then afterwards we'll talk to Ger from Tiglin. But rather than introduce you guys, I think you could do a better job yourselves. So Katrina, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and just telling us a little bit about Dawn Farm Foods.
Hi everyone, I'm Katrina Cahill. I work here in Naas in Dawn Farm Foods. I am the Site Food Safety and Quality Manager. Dawn Farm Foods is a family-owned food production business based here in Naas in County Kildare, and we are a supply cooked protein solutions to food service and manufacturing customers, both here in Ireland, in the UK, Europe, the Middle East, and as far reaching as Canada. We are partnered with large global food brands, providing the protein solutions for them. We've got two manufacturing sites here in Naas, and we have one in the UK and another one also in Germany. And throughout the Dawn Farms group, we employ about 1,000 people. So that's me.
Very good, very good. And Tara, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm another one of those 1,000 people working with Katrina, and I am sustainability manager with Dawn Farms.
Very nice to meet you, and thanks a million for joining us. Ger, over to you. Would you introduce yourself and just tell us all a little bit about the fabulous work that Tiglin are doing?
Yeah, so Jared Ganley's my name. I'm Rehab Services Manager with Tiglin and have been with them right from the start. So it's almost 16 years now. And we partnered with FoodCloud all of the years that they've been in existence. So it's been a good partnership. I suppose some of our services, we offer kind of a homeless cafe in the city centre in Pear Street, where we feed about 350 people daily in that cafe. And people come there primarily that are homeless and that are, they've just found themselves in hard times. Some of them have found themselves in addiction, and some of them are genuinely just families that are in need of support and help. And that's the Pear Street kind of facility that we kind of help people with. But then we also have treatment centres in Ashford and in British Bay, and we have some housing facilities as well, and we have aftercare supports within them. So people might start their journey in Pear Street that might be addicted or homeless, and they will come to our treatment centres and rehabilitate and become productive members in society, and we'll try and rehabilitate them. So it's a really good kind of circle of continuum of care for somebody. And often a meal is something that people are missing, and they can't afford food. And quite often we see quite a number of families that are in very, very difficult situations, and with cost of living and all of other different things that are out there, individuals are in need. And it's evident on a daily basis in the city in particular. Without FoodCloud, we'd possibly be in a major struggle to try and support some of them families and some of them individuals. So.
Very good. Thanks a million, Ger. And Phil, you've joined us as well. Would you like to do just a quick intro and anything you'd like to add to Ger's summary of the services that you guys are providing?
I think Ger has pretty much summed it up, but I suppose in terms of the partnerships and working together, collaboration is massively important. So we've seen the benefit of FoodCloud being able to collaborate in the background with, a variety of different food providers and producers over the years. And just making sure that it goes to some of the more vulnerable people on the frontline services that we will provide. So I think just, to reiterate that it's been a huge part of our own kind of food journey. Not only is it, environmentally supportive, but it also is cost effective just to have FoodCloud as a partner beside us.
Very good. And Phil, you were one of our early adopters as well. I don't know if you remember meeting for a coffee back in 2012, but
I do.
It's a bit of a full circle. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to Katrina and Tara briefly just to get a perspective from the food company side, and then I'll come back to Ger and Phil, and we'll bring it back together then with some kind of key themes that arise. So I suppose Katrina or Tara, over to you guys in terms of why do you donate your surplus food, and how does it fit into your wider sustainability goals? And I know you've been working with us for quite some time, but if you can just kind of cast your minds back to that decision process.
I suppose I'll take that part of the question. We met you at a networking event back in 2012, and you were presenting what FoodCloud offers, or what the potential it had to offer. And we were really blown away by the impact that something, that we would see every day as surplus food that we would have in our freezers, that potentially that it had a home. So we visited the Tala hub shortly after it opened, myself and a number of senior managers here. And we could see that we did have something to offer, but obviously the difference between us and maybe some of the other brand or partners that you have within FoodCloud was we had a frozen offering. So we brought that back here to Naas, and we all met as a team about how we could redistribute that surplus stock we have. And I mean, we were really blown away at the time by how well organized the hub was, you know, the volunteer work that went on, and you know what products we had to match the final offering that you've had for the likes of Tiglin and other community partners that you work with. So yeah, I suppose that's basically how we started with yourselves. It hasn't always been easy because we don't always have the same surplus food to offer, but you know, we put our heads together to see what we could do in terms of how we could support FoodCloud, because it was definitely something we wanted to do as a business.
Very good. And I suppose it's been over a number of years now, and obviously the kind of conversation around sustainability has become more prominent over that time. So how does donating food fit in with your overall sustainability strategy? Is it a big part of it? Is it a small part of it? And how does that work from your perspective?
It fits well into our sustainability program. Like most companies, we've made commitments to how we address food waste, and we've made commitments on reductions of food waste. So being able to send the food to FoodCloud works well against those commitments. We were members of Origin Green, and we're gold members for the last number of years. So the partnership with FoodCloud fits well with that charter as well. Getting the information regularly on what we've been sending and what we're donating. And then we've also committed to making a positive contribution within the community. So it's not only the food waste side, but being able to send food to charities that are local to ourselves. You know, it's just, the hub is just up the road, as Katrina says. So it crosses across a number of our pillars under our sustainability programme.
And I suppose given the fact that it is a frozen product, from a process perspective, can you talk to us a little bit about any potential challenges you faced in donating food? And like, did you have to change internal processes to make sure that the process worked?
Well, we did have to try and set up how we would distribute that product to yourselves at the time between Tala and then subsequently Galway afterwards. So we met with your team. They came and had a visit here with us in Naas, and we agreed that we probably wouldn't have surplus food every week, but if we were to gather it, change our process in terms of allocating surplus food to FoodCloud, we would be able to distribute it on a more regular, but a little bit more volume in terms of what we had to offer. So we also looked internally about the different products that we might have that would fit what the likes of, say, Tiglin and the cafes are offering on a daily basis, because sometimes some of the products we might produce might not actually fit your menus or work. So there was a bit of, I suppose, out of the box thinking in terms of how we could change what we do. And I mean, we did, and we made it work. And overall, there wasn't any significant changes we had to make. I suppose the biggest thing we had to overcome was the frozen distribution. But once we got that set in stone, it's been very, very seamless.
Very good. And so my last question, if you were to pick one benefit, so we've talked a little bit about the challenges, but one benefit for a food company like yourself of getting involved, what would you say that would be?
I suppose it's the total impact that we have made as a company to date. And when we get our annual FoodCloud impact report, we're just, I suppose we're blown away by the amount of meals that actually donates back into the community. And for us, we don't have surplus stock that we're looking for an alternative home for. We have a partner that we trust and we can work with to utilise perfectly good food. So Tara might have something on the Origin Green or sustainability side.
The same, to have that report, and when it's translated into, I think, this last year was 59,000 meals. Like that's, unbelievable to think that our packets chicken went into that. It was also really good. We had the opportunity to go up to the kitchens last year and see what work was being done and prepare some meals with the team there. So I think we're going to do that again this year. So that's really good, and getting the message back to the wider people in the company to see what can be done. So it's a very positive relationship.
Very good. Well, I might move over to Ger and Phil there. I suppose, could you tell us a little bit about how working with FoodCloud and donated food more broadly fits in with your overall food program, and give people a bit of a sense of how it works in practice?
So Phil wants to take that there.
Well, look, I suppose in practice, how it works, there's good and bad with it in terms of the menu design. Can sometimes you obviously have to work with what you got. So if we were to go to, say, I don't know, online and order food with Musgraves, you kind of know what you're going to get. So it means that we have to have creative chefs, and we need to make sure that the chef is kind of in line with kind of reducing food waste, and yet at the same time serving up a balanced, nutritious meal. So it's always flexible, always thinking on your feet, and we've found that to be, really good, in the sense that sometimes lazy behavior is just go for the easier option, whereas with this we've had to make sure that it's well thought out and well planned, and that at the end of it, as I said, it just delivers what's needed, which is a nutritious meal for somebody who's been on the streets for quite a while.
And just on that topic, then I suppose, like, you guys offer a range of services, kind of as Ger described, but how important is the food element of what you do in terms of engaging with people that can that need that support?
Yeah, so I suppose ironically, while we serve a lot of food, like we could serve anywhere between 300 and 500 meals a day through the lighthouse alone, we would ironically say that we're not a food-based service, because our goal is not just to feed somebody. We see the food as a means to engage. We see the food as it's an Irish thing, sitting around the table, having a chat, having something to eat. That's a big part of it. One of the slogans that we have on the wall in the lighthouse is that it's a living room for those in need of one. So it's more than just a place that people can come in and get food. It is about engagement. It is like what Ger said earlier on about trying to make sure that we offer something that goes beyond the need to queue for food in the first place. Can we help you engage with an employment program? Can we help you engage with maybe a rehabilitation program that's on offer? Can we help you get more stable accommodation, so that we reduce the reliance on people having to come to one of our services in the first place? So without the food, though, we have very little to offer. We just literally have somewhere to sit. So the food is vital, but our end goal is to hopefully have somebody move beyond the need for that.
And just in terms of the, obviously the food is surplus in nature, but so you need to supplement that with your own purchases, but what percentage, or do you have a sense of what percentage is surplus, but what percentage do you guys still need to, I suppose, purchase directly?
Yeah, I don't have that figure at hand, but I know that if we were to go in, say, today into the lighthouse, we would probably be able to say something in and around 60% of what's served up has been, food from a donated source. And, we complement it then with other things. So obviously shelf life is some of the challenges that we might have. So if it's a short shelf life product, such as maybe, say, a salad type of a thing, you really have to be using that pretty quickly. Whereas if it's something that can be frozen, well, then we're able to kind of plan around it. But each meal will have probably 60% or maybe more of it that it's come from a donated source.
Yeah, very good. And then, I suppose there is an acknowledgement that there is, as you said, extra work associated with working with donated food. So from your perspective, is there any additional support or things that would make it easier for charities to work with surplus food? I mean, like equipment, staff, funding, like have you any ideas around what could support you or charities like yourselves to be able to work with surplus food more?
Yeah, I can answer that there. I mean, I suppose in terms of kind of funding and trying to help us, we partnered with City Bin a couple of years ago, in terms of waste management within the lighthouse in particular. And I suppose one of the journeys on that process is kind of looking at ways to be food smart, to actually get the food to the chefs that they can actually make that nutritious meal. And I suppose they need to be trained kind of a lot more in how to be food smart, so that our wastage is minimal, if nothing. At all. And that's a challenge in terms of ourselves. We are trying to reduce all the waste of any foodstuffs. And we've been on that journey for the last 2 years with City Bain and with Thornton. Well, they were acquired by Thorntons, but in particular, their innovation manager has been really good with us, and he's journeyed to try and help us to become food smart with the food that we're taking, and also to look at ways of not taking so much food that we cannot use, So we're just trying to be smart in terms of that. So funding really to train our chefs, to get our chefs to an area where they can be fully food smart. Like 750,000 tons of food went into waste last year. And that's a serious a serious amount of food, and it's a serious amount of wastage that I feel can be reduced by a lot of companies like Dawn Meats have done, in surplus food, and giving it to FoodCloud to kind of help with charities. But equally, our other challenge is around kind of managing the pieces. So we need 350 meals or 500 meals of the same product, and that is a challenge. But in terms of volunteers, we've had a good uptake in volunteers and different things like that. But we're always looking for funding for food, for the amount of food that we actually require is substantial of the same product. And ideally, meats, frozen meats, are our biggest, if you like, expense.
Yeah, which is very handy because Dawn Farm Foods also provide that protein that's really, really, really appreciated by charities. And over again, when we go out and ask the charities what's the most, I suppose, valuable food, it is that protein that comes back again and again as well. I suppose coming back then, just if I was to go back to you, Katrina, what would be your key message to a food business that might be considering getting involved in food redistribution?
I would advise to go and look at your process and anything that is potentially surplus, how you would redistribute that to FoodCloud. Because before we became involved with FoodCloud, we wouldn't have seen that we could get value, not value from a monetary point of view, but value from an environment point of view, value back into the community from the surplus food, from the couple of packs that didn't make up a case for a final customer, but it was sitting in a cold storage warehouse with no home. And now for us, we don't have, that concern. We know it's going back into the community and it's making a positive impact.
Very good. And for Ger or Phil, from a charity perspective, if you were to talk to another charity, what would be your message to them in relation to, I suppose, embarking on a journey of working with surplus foods?
Yeah, I think for us, it's not something that we feel we have a choice on, in the sense that as a charity we need to use funds in the right manner. So if we can get something either for free or for a reduced cost, naturally we have to do that. We have no choice but to do that. So I think any charity that is serving food or has a need for that, I think they should really be looking at options such as FoodCloud to reduce not only the spend, but also to be looking at it from the environmental impact point of view. Charities typically probably aren't hugely focused on the environment unless they're an environmentally focused charity as such. They're set up with those aims. For us, we're able to see the benefits financially and environmentally for it,
Yeah, and just maybe on that, going back to either Katrina or Tara, like there is obviously the social impact, which I think Phil and Ger have really captured in what they're doing and the really important work that Tiglin do. But Phil mentioned there, for them, the environmental impact is important. And if you're considering food donation, like, would you be able to weight or say, is the social impact or the environmental impact, which is more important, or are different parts of your organization interested in different parts of the impact?
I'd say from our side, because of how we speak about it here, it's more the social side, because we're relating it to meals, it's going into meals. So, that's how, as Katrina said, we see value from it, not monetary value, but it feels like it's good food and it's not going to waste. It's going into a meal for someone. On the environmental side, I mean, it's Food Waste Week, so you can see, as Ger mentioned, the amount of waste food, it's just horrendous. So it's good to relate it back to the environment and translate it into carbon emissions and stuff like that. But I think what's more relatable to everybody here and to people working here, and it's the social side that it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do as a business. So.
Very good. And I suppose, Phil or Ger, from your point of view, if you had to give one big learning from your experience, what would that be? I know you talked about various elements of planning and things, but was there any, your old hats at it at this stage, but is there any major learning that you would advise another organization considering to get involved to take on board?
I think it's the managing of the food and the surplus of it, just carefully managing that, so that it actually has the impact that it can have and that it does have for individuals. So it's trying to manage it when it comes in, that you have people that are able to utilize it in the correct way and so forth. So that is the learning piece, and trying to reduce the waste totally of anything that comes to us is the challenge at times. And yeah.
Have you got, can you share maybe the most unusual product that you've got over the years, or have you examples of extreme creativity?
I think one of the creative pieces, we've kind of joined up thinking at times, and sometimes we will get fruit that is pretty, maybe even near its end of life. Yes, it needs a bit of love. So we partnered with, and I think she's partnered with yourself, Aoibheann, Giselle, in terms of ice cream and making ice cream for our individuals. So some of the fruit can be dried and can be processed down and Giselle is a Brazilian lady who has a business with ice cream. So she makes quite a lot of ice cream products, and she would have partnered with us to give us ice cream on some of our Sundays, for instance, after the meal with the individuals. So that was an interesting collaborative piece, where the fruit was potentially going to go to the bin, into our food waste bin. We decided no, we would get that back to Giselle, and then she gave us ice cream in return for it. And perfectly delicious ice cream, in fact. So that's been interesting to find out. And then on the journey, kind of, saying, okay, is this fruit and veg still usable? Is this product still usable? And that's something we would like to explore a lot more. Because there is certain foods that are still very, very usable that are maybe not being used, if you like. And you're right.
That sounds, and I've tasted the cream of the crop ice cream, and it's absolutely delicious. And I suppose just before, we have a couple of questions come in. So, but before we go to questions, I suppose I would be interested to know, having worked with food redistribution over the last number of years on both sides, from a personal perspective, have you got any food waste tips or tricks that you use at home? Because we also know that food waste in the home is a massive issue. So has working in this area changed behaviours on your side? And if so, I might do a round of sharing any nuggets of wisdom before we go to a couple of questions. Jared, starting. Oh, sorry, Katrina.
Go ahead. Yeah, definitely. I suppose when you work in this industry, you become very conscious of, I suppose, people who need a proper meal every day, and you bring that home, and try to put those values, instill those values in with your own family. So yeah, I mean, I suppose vegetables that might be coming to the end of life, I would just try and use them in sauces now, and hidden vegetable sauces for small people who don't necessarily like to see them on their plate. And it's just become, food waste has become such a taboo and no subject. So it's about instilling those values into your own family, and hopefully them, preventing any food waste going to the bin.
Yeah, I have some of those small people also at home, but they pull the food waste card on me when I say no to the chocolate, and they say, but otherwise it'll go to waste. So I've come up with a response to that. Phil, anything from you? It seems like the environmental side of things also is important part of this. So have you any tips or tricks that you'd like to share?
Not in particular, nothing that jumps out other than, as I said, as a charity, we're established to meet the needs of people who are either homeless or struggling with addictions. So environmental impact was not something that was ever front and central of what we were set up to do. But as things evolve, and as, I suppose, the information around environmental impact becomes more, I suppose, fluid, and it's something that's more discussed, we did feel a need to respond to that and to look at measures, not just around food waste, but just even in terms of waste management within our centres, and see how that waste management can save money. So I think they do seem to go hand in hand. We've looked at just different things across our centres as well, around kind of our heating systems and how to either use them better or find ways to get more efficient systems installed. So it is something that we've slightly transitioned into just because we think it is important, but it also does save money, and that money that we raise then as a charity has a longer stretch and a better reach.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Ger or Tara, would you like to add anything in there before we go to a couple of questions that have come in?
Oh, very little food waste in our house in the last few months. It's we're looking at food dates and shelf lives, and making sure, and a bit of planning for a few minutes on a Sunday or a Monday to see what we're having for the week. And the fussy eaters have by lack of choice become unfussier eaters, because it's two choices. It's there's your dinner, and if you don't want it today, you can have it tomorrow. That's fine. It'll still be good to eat. So yeah, it's really raised awareness, I suppose, of not throwing out perfectly good food or stuff that's on the edge.
Yeah, very good. And Ger, quickly to yourself before we go to the group.
Well, my wife's from Brazil, so it's waste nothing.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
that.
that's because they obviously have a way of utilizing the food, and they're mostly in impoverished or poverty is very, very rife in Brazil. So my wife wastes nothing, and she will try and make meals out of very little.
Do you not cook
So
yourself, Ger? No.
no, I'm not the cook of mine. So
Um,
that's
very
it.
good. Well, I have a couple of questions here. One for Tiglin before we wrap up would be, do you have the capacity to take more food? And if there was more food available, what would you be doing additional stuff, or would you, like as you said, are you saying no to certain foods, or how do you manage that capacity on your side?
Our challenge around food is usually two things. It's like it's the age old thing of what you already know, being around kind of access to the kind of the meat based, protein based products, things like that are will always form priority with us in terms of if we get an opportunity to receive 2 pallets of meat or 2 pallets of vegetables, it will be the meat because it's more expensive to purchase usually, and it's easier to store because most of those products can be frozen. Short shelf life stuff is the biggest challenge because sometimes it takes up a lot of room, but you have very small amount of time to use it. So we have a real struggle with storage. Like we might be out. We have a walk-in freezer in the lighthouse, for example, and we have 2 of them in one of our rehabs. So we can store longer life foods, usually the kind of more protein-based things. But the fresh products have to be used quickly. So if there was access to frozen vegetables, for example, that would be great because we can complement things a lot more. But typically we don't get a lot of frozen vegetables donated to us. It's normally fresh. So that's kind of the things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're consistent, I suppose, across a lot of charities. And I suppose our job is to try and figure out how we can help with some of those as well. From the Dawn Farm food side, there is a question around, did you face any internal challenges in getting buy-in for setting up a food donation process, and how did you overcome those? And I know it's a while ago now, but if you
Yeah,
could
it's a
reflect on
number of
that.
it's a number of years ago, but to be honest, no, we didn't. We see ourselves very involved in the community and the local economy here in Naas. So no is the honest answer. I think once we went and met with Aoibheann and the team in the Tala hub, it became very apparent that this was a right fit for us in terms of donation to FoodCloud. So no, but
Yeah, and do you think, was there, I suppose one thing we do here is just in terms of brand reputation, I suppose, how did you guys satisfy yourselves that what you were comfortable with that from a brand perspective?
yeah, there's obviously certain customers that we wouldn't be able to supply because they'd have bespoke recipes and their surplus food. So we found other ways within our own process to minimize or reduce any surplus food from certain products. But there are customers, not necessarily branded products, that we can donate. So I suppose it was something that we just had to look at the process and look at the products. I mean, we do over 600 live SKUs here, so there's plenty of opportunity for surplus food, and and that just because of end of runs, and instead of having 12 packs, you only have 6 packs, and you can't sell a case with 6 packs in it because they're obviously going to our customers' distribution centres, and they don't have the capacity to manage those. So no, it's about looking at the process and seeing what fits best for your customer or for your
Very
business.
good.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so well, that's great to hear because it's definitely something that continues to be a challenge for other
Yeah,
organizations. And I suppose back to you, Villager, we've one question. I think you've kind of answered this already, but apart from the protein that you mentioned, you did mention frozen vegetables, but is there other products that you would be, I suppose, doing a call out for us to try and prioritize getting different types of donors on board? What would be in your wish list?
Ger possibly has a few other ideas, but I know one of the things that always is very, very useful for us, because we do walking team outreaches and we'd organize different family days and things like that. So ironically, it's things like kind of the chocolate bars and the sweets and those types of things, because they are usually easy to store. They have a longer shelf life. But when we meet somebody on a walking team, quite often they just want something sweet to eat as well. They sometimes have access to things like sandwiches or soup that are donated, but sometimes just a bar of chocolate can go a long way. So that's certainly one of the things. We do from time to time get say yogurts and things like that that are donated. It's great on the day because usually you only have 1 to 2 days of life left in them, but they're bulky and hard to store, so that does create a challenge. We don't have lots of space to be storing that kind of thing, and then we end up in it with a waste product that we have to get rid of. But yeah, I would say things like chocolate and crisps and things like that are always a welcome, and bottles of water. So yeah.
Yeah, very good. Like I think we'll take that back, Phil. I think some of the food team from FoodCloud are on the call, so we will. They can hear from you that we want to prioritize sourcing in addition to your protein and your frozen vegetables. But I suppose we're coming up to time, so I'm gonna stop with the questions. Just a couple of reflections from myself. A big thank you. I know the work that Tiglin are doing in Dublin and Wicklow and across a range of services. Is really amazing work that you're doing, and you've had to evolve with the challenges in the city centre. You've had to adapt your services, and I suppose I'm a big admirer of everything you're doing, and I know you're super busy, so just a massive thank you for coming along today and sharing your insights and helping others to potentially get involved. And similarly to Katrina and Tara, you're also pioneers from within our food partner network. So just a big thank you. I suppose what I've heard today, I would see as food is a basic human need, and it's not just in terms of nourishment, it's also about that connection. And I suppose what continues to inspire us in FoodCloud is even connecting Katrina and Tara with Ger and Phil, and making you, I suppose, see what it's like to be in another person's shoes as well. And I suppose what's inspiring about working in FoodCloud is the opportunity we have to bring together food businesses and charities that are all working towards that same goal. So whether it's a way to offer other services like housing and rehabilitation, and Phil, you made that point about food being that enabler, and that draw to bring people in. We all know that from our own relationship with food, that all our own family events are around food, and it's just a way to connect. Or whether it's Dawn Farm Foods doing all that work to make sure that the food finds a good home. So really it continues to inspire us to bring organizations like you guys together, and we'll continue to work to try and access more food and support more work. The purpose of this is also to get more charities and businesses on board. So I would encourage everybody to look at the Food Waste Charter. It's the EPA's charter. We all want to play our part in, I suppose, achieving a vision for Ireland where we have no food waste, and I suppose meeting our own international and national obligations is really important. What continues to inspire me is the fact that in doing what we all do day to day, whether it's Ger or Phil or Tara, Katrina or ourselves here in FoodCloud, we're all working together today to make an impact today to create a planet and a future that is better for generations to come. So I think, and I hope that was encapsulated in today's discussion. And I just want to do a big thank you to Ger, Tara, Katrina and Phil for your support. A thank you to the Department of Environment, Communications and Climate Change for your support and helping us make this happen. And yeah, here's to a vision where no good food goes to waste. So thank you all.